Fort Alexander is one of the coolest and weirdest abandoned places in the world for many reasons. Located on an island in the Baltic Sea, this bean-shaped fort looks like some sort of prison colony. It was actually used as a research laboratory focused on studying the until some researchers were accidentally infected. It is now nicknamed Fort. The island was used later on to study other diseases, luckily in isolation, but was shut down in 1917. It was used by the Russian Navy as a storage facility until it was abandoned. Somehow, this creepy abandoned military fortress / lab became the hub of alternative ravers in the 90s. Number 9. Hashima Island, Japan. Hashima Island, located in Nagasaki, also known as Battleship Island, used to be a bustling city full of thousands of coal miners. Today, Battleship Island, which is shaped suspiciously like a battleship in the middle of the ocean, sits completely abandoned off the coast. It is a dark reminder of Japan's brutal labor practices before and during the Second World War. In the 30s and 40s, many workers perished from malnutrition, exhaustion, and unsafe working conditions. The island's notoriety began in 1887 when the underwater coal mines started their operation. In time, the city grew to accommodate thousands of workers and their families. When coal mining declined and closed in 1974, everyone left, leaving the concrete buildings to collapse into rubble. In 2015, it was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Historical Site, but the majority of the island remains off-limits to visitors. Remnants of schools, hospitals, and even children's toys can be seen, left forsaken and ruined apartment buildings. It is a testament to the forced laborers and grueling working conditions on the island, as well as the history of industrialization. Number 8. Kalavantan Durg, India. India is home to one of the most incredible abandoned places that you have probably never heard of. The Kalavantan Durg is an abandoned fortress at the very top of a massive mound of earth. Located in Maharashtra, it sits high up in the air, about 2,300 feet above sea level, shrouded in clouds and mystery. Suffice to say, reaching this incredibly perilous abandoned fortress is no easy feat. Climbing to the fortress means trekking up a rock staircase carved into the side of the mountain with thousands of steps. If it's wet, forget about it. This staircase is so steep that one wrong move can send you spiraling to your doom at the bottom of the slope. The climb takes about 3 hours, but the view is well worth it, surrounded by nature and waterfalls. Now, the fort lies abandoned, taken over by greenery, and it does not hold any military significance. Number 7. Nara Dreamland, Japan. What is creepier than an abandoned amusement park? I vote nothing. The first thing that comes to mind when I think of a forsaken theme park is a legion of vagrant clowns with runny makeup and boot knives strapped to their ankles. If that doesn't rouse at least a bit of fear, you are tougher than I am. This abandoned theme park near Tokyo in Japan operated for 45 years, from 1961 until 2006, at which time the brutal competition from Disneyland and Disney Sea put them out of business. Eerily enough, the abandoned amusement park remained standing for over a decade. All those quaint theme park streets, brightly painted buildings, and derelict children's rides remained a stark reminder that there is no competition that Disney can't squash. When it was abandoned in 2006, everything was left just as it was, and urban explorers have taken amazing images of the park before it was demolished 10 years later at the risk of getting arrested. Photographer Romain Veillon told CNN that he just walked in through the front entrance later on. It seemed like all security guards were long gone. He said that it was amazing walking into the park. The vegetation had really consumed the rides and structures, which transformed the atmosphere. As I walked through the park, I would think about all the good memories that had been made by visitors when it was still open. It makes you almost feel nostalgic. It makes you want to hear the sound of children screaming and families having fun. There was an incredible sense of wonder. Some of the abandoned locations I explore can be quite sad and gloomy, but this was quite joyful and magical. Number 6. Power Station, Belgium. Built in 1921, it was one of the largest coal-burning power plants in Belgium. Its massive tower was the main source of energy in the Charleroi area and is said to have been able to cool down 480,000 gallons of water per minute. During the 1970s, new components were even added to the power plant that could also use gas power. The problem was that Plant IM was responsible for 10% of the total carbon dioxide emissions in Belgium, so Greenpeace raised the alarm, leading to its shutdown in 2007. Now the power plant is empty and abandoned, a grim reminder of European industrialization, and there is a giant hole in the ground that looks ready to swallow you whole like some sort of death trap. The hole looks like the beginning of a black hole that leads to the other side of the universe, only it's made of concrete covered in moss. Originally a cooling tower for one of the biggest coal-burning plants in Belgium, this is now a sad concrete graveyard. There are reports of scrap metal looters and security guards, but several urban explorers have made their way inside. Number 5. Tyrone House, Ireland. This great abandoned manor house is a reminder of days gone by. This once prosperous house is now besieged by moss and left vulnerable to Mother Nature. You will find the Tyrone House in Galway overlooking the mighty Atlantic Ocean. This is one of the most beautiful plots of land you could ever hope to afford. The house was designed to reflect the growing Irish passion for beauty and sensitive artistry in domestic residences. With 3 stories and big windows, no expense was spared. St. George also built Kilcolgan Castle, made after the medieval style. This hidden gem is open as a hotel and is said to be a great place to stay off the beaten path. The house was destroyed by the IRA in 1920 during the Irish War of Independence, when there were rumors that it was going to be used as an infirmary. Years later, when it was purchased by a Georgian society in 1972, it should have been rebuilt, but it never was. The Tyrone House remains completely abandoned to this day, a strong, beautiful husk of an ancient home standing along the coast. It's all alone, overtaken by the elements as a sad reminder of what it once was. Number 4. Baron Empine Palace, Egypt. In Cairo, Egypt, in the Heliopolis suburb, there stands a mansion inspired by the Hindu temple architecture of Angkor Wat in Cambodia and Orissa in India. Long abandoned, there are many rumors and stories surrounding this place. The Baron led a tragic life and remains a mysterious figure. His wife is said to have fallen to her death from the main tower, and his daughter, who was mentally ill, also died a few years later. After World War I, the Baron moved to Europe, and by 1952, the house was sold and later abandoned. There are stories that the mirrors appear to be covered in blood and furniture moves without any human touch. And if moving furniture and bloody mirrors are not freaky enough on their own, many people have reported hearing voices crying out in pain late at night, as well as sightings of a woman believed to be the Baron's daughter. Unfortunately, if you were hoping to take a tour of Baron Palace on your next trip to Cairo, think again. This place is closed to the public, although there are hopes that the government will renovate the palace to use it as a conference space. We'll see. Number 3. Tillamook Rock Lighthouse, Oregon. Lighthouses are full of romance and nostalgia, and sometimes terrible tales. Off of Oregon's north coast stands one of the most ominous-looking lighthouses that you'll find anywhere in North America. The Tillamook Rock Lighthouse, nicknamed Terrible Tilly, was completed in January 1881 after 500 days of arduous labor and horrible incidents. Workers starved for weeks as they waited for supplies to arrive. Suffice to say, Terrible Tilly started its life turbulently and violently, but its whole purpose was to save ships from that fate. It comes as no surprise that the lighthouse now stands battered and broken on a stony rock, completely abandoned and closed to the public. Lightkeepers were finally assigned, but they would work in short rotations since conditions were so difficult. A great storm in 1934 smashed the lantern room and the light's main lens. Neither was ever properly repaired, and on September 1st, 1957, the light was turned off for good. The last lightkeeper turned off the light for good and wrote, "I return thee to the elements. Keepers have come and gone, men lived and died, but you were faithful to the end. May your sunset years be good years. Your purpose is now only a symbol, but the lives you have saved and the service you have rendered are worthy of the highest respect." Her role, in the end, was not so terrible. Number 2. Lake Reschen, Italy. In 1946, an entire village in Italy was submerged underwater. Since then, only the steeple of the submerged 14th century church sticks out of the lake. Called Lake Reschen, the artificial lake was made as part of a dam project that would provide the area with electricity. Residents from the town and the valley were forced from their homes prior to the area being flooded. The church is not the only building submerged underwater. There are approximately 163 homes hidden underneath. It is literally an underwater town. In the winter, when the lake freezes, you can walk to the steeple of the church and take photographs. This is probably one of the coolest places in Italy for a winter excursion, especially with the magnificent mountain range looming grand in the distance. One spooky thing to note is that local legends claim the church bells can be heard ringing sometimes in the winter. This is a bit unnerving considering the bells were removed before the lake was flooded over 60 years ago. Perhaps they will offer diving tours of the old 14th century town. Number 1. Bodiam Castle, England. Built in 1385, this castle is one of the most picturesque in Britain. It is often used as a representation of a perfect English castle. It was created to defend the area against the French in the 100 Years' War. Before the castle, there was a small fortification on the site, so it has been used as a strategic location for many hundreds of years. The castle became a symbol of strength in the area, but it had many defensive shortcomings. Historians argue about how powerful this place really was, but regardless, the moat and solid entrance give it an imposing appearance. It last saw military action in 1643, but the castle hadn't really been inhabited since the 15th century and had been falling into ruins bit by bit. The castle lay in ruins until about the 19th century, when it was finally restored and given to the National Trust in 1925 by its last owner, Lord George Curzon. While the exterior is in pretty good shape, the interior isn't looking so good. But you can go and visit the grounds and the castle remains to admire it and let your imagination run wild. Thanks for watching. Bye!